Part 37. The favorite of the Nongmen group, the female supporting role is a full-level boss. Author, Ruanmeng Baobao. Chapter 361. Zhao Wei put his hands behind his head, facing out the window, his dark eyes staring at the full moon in the sky. The image of Tang Nuan feeling aggrieved, angry, regretful, and relieved today flashed through her mind, and she finally made a decision. Her eyes were red, but the corner of her mouth was smiling, and she told him that we will act according to the previous agreement, and this marriage is in her heart. Not counting. Zhao Wei frowned, probably because he treated her badly, or because she was forced by circumstances from the beginning and had no choice but to marry him. Doesn't he want to be nice to her because he doesn't want them to break up in the end? She owes him. Zhao Wei had never been so depressed before. Even during the war, he had never been so restless. He suddenly remembered that there was no maid to bring midnight snacks tonight. After getting married, if he went to bed late or came back late, his maid would always bring him midnight snacks. She had prepared all of this, and now that she wanted to leave as soon as possible, she didn't want to do any of these unnecessary things. Zhao Wei thought to himself that it might be because he was used to eating late-night snacks, but when he suddenly didn't eat, he felt that something was missing in his heart, and he couldn't sleep. He jumped up, took the long sword, and practiced swordplay under the moonlight. After practicing a set of sword skills, Zhao Wei was sweating profusely and did not feel happy in his heart. He wiped his face, ordered hot water to take a shower, and ordered the boy to bring him midnight snacks. After eating, Zhao Wei pushed open the door of the main room and entered the inner room. He lay down on the outer edge of the spacious soft couch. There seemed to be a long quilt inside. He was strong-blooded and a little hot, so he didn't pull the quilt to cover him. There was a faint sweet scent filling his nose, and he felt sleepy. Sure enough, it was because he didn't have a midnight snack. As soon as his thoughts passed, he fell into a deep sleep. The cold moonlight shone on the soft couch from the window, and a long rolled-up piece inside moved, and then a head was exposed. The cold moonlight shone on Tang Nuan's rosy little face, and her eyes seemed to be filled with panic and worry. Nervous. She tossed and turned and couldn't sleep, so she rolled up the quilt and fell asleep on the soft couch. The dark room made her feel a little scared. She buried her head in the quilt and pressed against the wall, which made her feel more at ease. She finally fell asleep, and someone seemed to be sleeping next to her. Her whole body tensed up, and then she heard the sound of shoes being kicked to the ground. She woke up completely and smelled a familiar scent. Zhao Wei came back from sleep. She didn't dare to breathe out, and she didn't dare to move at all. Her heart was beating rapidly, as if it was about to jump out of her throat. She was so afraid that Zhao Wei would pull back the quilt and suddenly find someone hiding under the quilt. This man still said during the day that he would not marry him, and the woman who kicked him out was sleeping on his bed in the blink of an eye. What is the difference between this and throwing herself into his arms? Tang Nuan's face burned with shame. Fortunately, he didn't notice. She looked at Zhao Wei's tired sleeping face and pursed her lips. She thought of the month he had just entered the house, when he was sleeping on the soft couch, and she turned over slightly, which made him alert. He seemed to adapt to it after that. Even if he got up at night, he didn't wake up. She crawled over him. He shouldn't know, right? Tang Nuan's heartbeat started to lose control again, and her palms were sweating from nervousness. She slowly got out of the quilt, tiptoed, and stepped one leg over his feet. She held her breath, and cautiously placed one hand on the edge of the soft couch, about to kick the other foot out. Suddenly, her arms tightened, and a strong force pulled her towards his arms. Ah! Tang Nuan exclaimed, and when she met a pair of dark eyes, her heartbeat seemed to stop. The author has something to say. Babies, Happy New Year, good luck in the year of the ox, peace and joy, everything goes well, I love you, okay. The favorite of the Nongmen group, the female supporting role is a full-level boss. Author, Ruan Meng Bao. Chapter 362. Eyes facing each other. Zhao Wei's deep and dark eyes showed a hazy sleepiness, not as sharp as they were in the daytime. The soft moonlight fell on his angular face like a knife, and the cold and hard lines seemed to soften, strangely soothing Tang Nuan's uneasiness. The hands on his chest no longer trembled, but they were too nervous. The heart beats rapidly. Zhao Wei's eyes were fixed on the woman in his arms, with a rare flash of confusion in his eyes, as if he couldn't tell whether this was a dream or reality. If it were in a dream, this feeling would be too real. In reality, Tang Nuan would never have climbed into his bed. Zhao Wei blinked slowly, and his eyes gradually became clear. The touch in her hands was soft, and the warmth of her skin penetrated through the fabric. Her shadow in the dim moonlight also solidified, and her pair of bright black eyes were as wet as a deer in the jungle, panicked. He was stunned for a rare moment and lost his voice. "You. Why are you on my bed?" Soon realizing that this was inappropriate, Zhao Wei swallowed the second half. After a moment of silence, his Adam's apple rolled slightly and his tone was low. "Aren't you going to sleep so late?" Tang Nuan's face turned red. Inexplicably, I realized what he had left unfinished. She moved her arm awkwardly, signaling for him to let go. "It hurts." Zhao Wei looked at her moist eyes, watery with grievance, tightened the corners of his lips, and loosened his grip on her arms. When he held Tang Nuan's arm, he used some force to support her arm. As soon as he let go, Tang Nuan's strength was relieved, his arms went limp, and she threw herself into his arms, burying her face into his neck. Ruined. Tang Nuan felt desperate. In this silent night, only the heartbeats of two people were particularly clear. She didn't move. Zhao Wei didn't lift her off either. Both of them remained stiff and in strange postures. The atmosphere is subtle and full of ambiguity. Zhao Wei keenly felt her gentle breathing spraying on the fragile and sensitive skin of his neck. The numbness caused the blood all over his body to surge rapidly. The sweet fragrance of her body lingered in his nose, making his heart tingle. He closed his eyes, held her sideways, put her on his side, and then he turned over and sat up. Only then did I realize that this was not a study, but a soft couch in the main room. Tang Nuan wanted to roll herself up in bed and bury herself in the quilt, escaping the current situation like an ostrich, but she was not allowed to escape. Her eyes were covered with water and she explained in a low voice, "I packed my things today and my waist is a bit tight. The mattress was so fluffy and soft that I couldn't sleep comfortably, so I just went to sleep on the soft couch." "Why are you here?" The last sentence was as thin as a mosquito or a fly, as if it was muttered in the mouth, very vague. Zhao Wei heard it. He pinched his eyebrows and said, "You went to the wrong place." Tang Nuan grabbed the quilt with her fingers and looked at him eagerly. "I hope he will stay and go back to his study. This will alleviate her discomfort." And the heartbeat that was out of her control. Zhao Wei lowered his eyes and stared at her. His long black hair was spread all over the pillow, and his fair and delicate face was red from shyness. Half of his face was retracted into the bed, only a pair of moist eyes were exposed. It was clean and clear, allowing people to see clearly what she was thinking, and she looked forward to him leaving soon. There was a strange feeling in his heart, that she looked so soft and cute. Zhao Wei feels that he is considerate, does not embarrass others, and does not force others into difficulties. Maybe she was too tired, or maybe her appearance made people want to bully her. Let's see if her misty eyes would make her cry. He lay on the soft couch again, his tall and straight body occupying most of the soft couch. Tang Nuan's eyes widened in shock, and she huddled up, her back pressed tightly against the back of the soft couch, leaving a gap in the middle. Compared with Zhao Wei's wanton sleeping posture, she looked pitiful. You don't want to go to the study?" Zhao Wei was silent, as if he had fallen asleep. Tang Nuan knew that he was not asleep, and her eyes were full of annoyance. She never expected that he would not leave, so she lay down directly without waiting for her to get down. His presence was too strong. If she were trapped on the soft couch, she would not be able to sleep a wink that night. Climb off of him. Tang Nuan closed her eyes in despair, her ears were burning. She could never do such a thing again. Zhao Wei Tang Nuan mustered up the courage, stretched out a finger, poked his arm, and puffed up his cheeks. His arm was so hard. Seeing that he didn't respond, she continued to poke her. It seemed to be harder than before, and her clothes were tightened. She whispered, "Get up, and I will go back to bed." Zhao Wei still didn't respond. Tang Nuan persisted and poked again, only to see him move. Before she could react, her finger was grabbed by a wide and hot hand, and she stared blankly into his dark eyes, too scared to move. "Be honest." Zhao Wei raised his eyebrows. "Didn't you say that it's uncomfortable to sleep on the bed? But sleeping with you is even more uncomfortable." Tang Nuan didn't dare to say that he was fierce and dangerous now, for fear of irritating him, so he just said "oh" without any hope. Seeing that she was obediently motionless, Zhao Wei let go of his ridiculously soft fingers, pulled down the quilt that was blocking her nose, pressed it on her chin, and said in a hoarse and low voice, "Go to sleep." Tang Nuan was stunned, looking at his side face in a daze, and fell into the rare tenderness he had just shown. She was in a daze for a while, and then she slowly woke up and heard his even breathing. She was asleep. She rubbed her chin gently and lay beside him softly without making any further fuss. The soft couch can be considered spacious, but it is a little narrow for two people. Tang Nuan felt uncomfortable and turned over repeatedly, trying not to touch Zhao Wei. Still not feeling sleepy at all. Finally, she stared at his sleeping face and sighed softly. It was a bit cold in the second half of the night, so Tang Nuan struggled for a while and divided half of the quilt to cover him. The next moment, she fell into a broad and strong embrace. His voice sounded above his head, "Don't move around. It's making me unable to sleep. I have to go back to the military camp for training at the 4th watch." Tang Nuan was silent for a moment, slowly relaxing her stiff body and getting ready to endure the whole night. Then, she was shocked again. Like putting a child to sleep, gently patting her back. Tang Nuan's eyes were hot and her heart felt sour. She gave up her struggle completely due to his tenderness and consideration. There was no resistance anymore and her cheek rested gently on his chest. Listening to his steady and powerful heartbeat in my ears, I felt inexplicably at ease and fell asleep. The two slept together all night, and the atmosphere was unexpectedly harmonious. As a result, when Tang Nuan woke up in bed, his expression was in a trance, as if he was in a big dream. She stared blankly at the soft couch opposite. The maid came in from outside and saw that Tang Nuan was awake, so she asked, "Madam, do you want to get up?" Tang Nuan came back to her senses and looked at the maid, only to find that she had an unfamiliar face. The maid said, "This slave was sent by 4th Master to take care of you. Warm reminder, if you find that clicking the next page will force you to jump to other websites, please use the chapter error or contact us at the bottom to inform us. We will handle it as soon as possible. Thank you for your understanding. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The favorite of the Nongmen group, the female supporting role is a full-level boss. Author, Ruanmeng Baobao. Chapter 363. Where's Xiaoqing? Tang Nuan couldn't figure out what Zhao Wei was thinking. Why did he arrange for her to be called someone? The maid explained, "Xiaoqing wants to deliver food to 4th Master, and you must have someone by your side to serve him." Tang Nuan frowned. She didn't keep any maids in the home mansion. None of them were people who took good care of her. They were also paving the way for leaving the Zhao mansion. Xiaoqing was the person assigned to her by Mrs. Zhao. Tang Nuan sat up and asked, "What's your name? You can give your slave a name." Tang Nuan suddenly remembered a sentence, "Taste in the world is happiness." Qing Huan Tang Nuan liked this phrase very much, "Your name is Qing Huan." Qing Huan saluted respectfully, "Slave, thank you madam for naming me." Tang Nuan smiled softly and washed up under Qing Huan's service. After breakfast, someone from Mrs. Zhao invited her to come over to discuss the separation of the family. Qing Huan whispered in her ear, "Madam, the fourth master will be back, so don't be afraid." "I'm not afraid," Tang Nuan said vaguely. The second master Zhao's departure has become an established fact. The second sister-in-law has her own arrangements. The division of the house is the second sister-in-law's wish, and she does not need to step in to help. If the second sister-in-law doesn't want to separate, she needs Zhao Wei to be here, and he has the right to speak in the house. Tang Nuan took Qing Huan to Mrs. Zhao's place. When she walked to the entrance of the courtyard, she saw Zhao Wei, his tall and straight body like a green pine standing next to a potted plant. If he felt something, he looked sideways and saw Tang Nuan standing not far away. "Brother and sister-in-law are all here, let's go in together." Tang Nuan realized that he was waiting for her specially. Everyone was here, but she was the last to arrive. Under such circumstances, she would inevitably be too conspicuous, and it would be easy for people to gossip. I couldn't help but have little bubbles popping up in my heart. Thinking of the two people getting along last night, the bubbles popping up in my heart burst. Tang Nuan's face turned red uncontrollably, and she walked to his side, and the two of them walked into the house side by side. The eldest room, the second room, and the third room were all seated in order. Zhao Ziwen's eyes were red and swollen, and he sat in the chair with a gloomy face. Zhao Yu stood behind Zhao Ziwen. Yesterday, he received dozens of whippings from his family and was unable to sit down. The only calm person in the second room was Qin Zhen, fiddling with the silk in her hand and not caring about what was about to happen. This appearance made Zhao Ziwen secretly resentful. It was strange that Qin Zhen acted as the shopkeeper and allowed him to say all his good and bad things. She refused to beg her sister-in-law and fourth younger siblings, and she did not dare to move out of her parents' home. He was running around alone, crying in front of his eldest brother, weeping in front of his third brother, and confessing in front of the old lady. His eyes were almost blinded by crying, and it didn't help. When Zhao Wei and Tang Nuan came in, Zhao Ziwen glared at Zhao Wei, and even the younger brother felt resentful. "For such a big thing, the whole family will be waiting for you too. As you get older, your heirs will also grow." Zhao Ziwen felt unhappy and spoke strangely. "Okay. You are the elder brother. When we meet, you will squeeze your younger brother like a black eye. He is not as free as you. You are still sleeping soundly, and your fourth brother has to get up and go to the military camp to train soldiers." Mr. Zhao, people's moods are even worse. If a family is in good condition, one person needs to be scattered out. After thinking about it, I still blame Zhao Ziwen for not doing his job properly, and I also have opinions about him. You have such a promising fourth brother, you won't be asking for help if you are sent out. Zhao Ziwen sneered. The mother separated her son because she disliked her son's lack of ability. Mrs. Zhao was so angry that her chest hurt, and she scolded her sternly, "You are such a traitor. Until now, you still don't know how to reflect. Why should your family be separated? What have you done? Don't you know it in your heart?" Zhao Ziwen turned his head away. Mrs. Zhao covered her aching heart and asked, "Where did you throw the invitation sent by the Gu family?" Zhao Ziwen's expression froze, and he was instantly discouraged and dejected. The eldest brother was the woman who was said to be in a romantic relationship with Yuer. She sneaked into the Gu family with his invitation and was about to attack Gu Huizi. By some mistake, you slept with her. He did this wrong. Even so, Zhao Ziwen still wanted to struggle again. Mother, I was wrong. The Gu family has nothing to lose. I am not guilty of this and was abandoned by the family. Even if Gu Huizi fell into that woman's trap, isn't he still a woman? Can a man still suffer a loss? He was very disapproving. A person like Gu Huizi will definitely have many wives and concubines in the future. This woman is not dirty, she is still a slut. Then he muttered unrepentantly, why make such a fuss? Brother-in-law is not such a person. He is such a good person like sister. He will only have sister and no other women. Tang Nuan defended Gu Huizi and Su Wan and said dissatisfiedly, brother-in-law can sit in the current position. His position shows that he is a tough-minded person. How can he think that everyone is a greedy person? Zhao Ziwen stood up suddenly. Who is the hungry ghost in lust? Who do you think is the hungry ghost in lust? Whoever responds to what I say is the one. Tang Nuan is not afraid of him. Zhao Ziwen went crazy and turned to Zhao Wei, fourth brother, look at her, is she cool? You don't care. Second brother, did Xiao Nuan make a mistake? Zhao Wei gave Zhao Yu a cold look. Zhao Yu shrank back. Zhao Ziwen choked and had no choice but to look at Tang Nuan angrily and write down the account. Let's divide. I'll put it here today. There are endless people giving women to Gu Huizi, and besides, I did it unintentionally. Zhao Ziwen sneered, you are the only ones who don't even want relatives for your own benefit. Father, early on in anticipation of this day, I repeatedly mentioned not to separate the family, so that the family can prosper. You continue to be a dog to the royal family. I am ashamed of you. Mrs. Zhao was dizzy and almost fainted. Zhao Zhengxian sneered again and again, second brother is so noble. The family's property was obtained by our ancestors as dogs for the emperor's relatives. You don't even bother to take it? Second brother, in this case, we won't force you to stay. You will take good care of you in the future. Mr. Zhao San's tone was calm, but there was anger in his eyes. He was also offended by Mr. Zhao Er's words. Zhao Wei directly ordered Zhao Rong, who was guarding outside, you escort the second master out of the house, and you have to watch every stitch. Mr. Zhao Er's face turned the color of pig's liver. He originally thought there was no hope of staying, so he just cared about his own pleasure and kept saying every word that was heart-wrenching. Although it was a bit more enjoyable, it came at a huge price. If he gets a share of the property of the Zhao family's ancestors, he will not have to worry about food and clothing in this life, and can still live as before. If he doesn't take away even a copper coin, what kind of job is he doing? Mr. Zhao felt that the world was shattering and he said regretfully, Mother, these are not my true words. Often unintentional words are your truest thoughts. Mrs. Zhao completely lost hope in her second son. Let's go as a family. Mr. Zhao and his family were kicked out like this. They only had some personal belongings and not even a penny of money came from the Zhao family. Zhao Rong hitched up the carriage and said, Second master and second madam, I will give you a house to live in. I will send you there. After a pause, he stepped aside to reveal the woman following him. Second master, you like this girl, so the old lady buys her life with money and lives with you from now on. The author has something to say. Ruan Bao likes Sushi's words very much. Plain and simple joy is the most beautiful. Moi. The favorite of the Nongmen group, the female supporting role is a full-level boss. Author, Ruan Meng Bao. Chapter 364. Ruan Yan Yingying saluted, Second madam, second master, second young master. Yanner will stay by your side to serve you from now on. She thought that she had bet on the wrong thing, that Mrs. Zhao could not protect her, and that there was no hope of her becoming a concubine in Zhao's house. Unexpectedly, things would take a turn for the worse, and Erfang and his family were separated from the house, and they even ransomed themselves for her and became Zhao Yu's people. Mother Wu was extremely disappointed with her. Even though she was unwilling to let him go, she did not dare to confront the Zhao family. Several people treat her differently. Mrs. Zhao nodded slightly, as if giving her a face. Mr. Zhao glared at her angrily. If this woman hadn't sneaked into Gu's house with the invitation, how could he have been kicked out in despair? His face darkened when he thought of packing his things while a group of people were watching him, fearing that he might get an extra needle or thread. Zhao Yu's eyes turned red when he saw her, and he wanted to eat her alive. If this bitch dares to come to your door, just wait for death. He has plenty of ways to grind her to death. Ruanyan didn't notice anything and stood meekly behind Zhao Yu. Zhao Yu sneered and turned around to get on the carriage. Ruanyan hurriedly bowed to Mrs. Zhao and Mr. Zhao, got into the carriage, and followed Zhao Yu closely. Mr. Zhao blew his beard and glared, "Come down. Who allows you to get on the carriage?" "Second master, this is the person that the old lady gave to you. Let her stay and take care of you." Mrs. Zhao second lady stopped Zhao Ziwen from driving away. Ruanyan, you always said that women who have fallen into the world are very pitiful. You can take more care of them, take pity on them, and don't be too harsh on them. After all, if they had the choice, no one would choose such an origin. Mr. Zhao was choked and couldn't say anything to refute Qin Zhen. He could only stare, and then got into the carriage angrily. Mrs. Zhao nodded to Zhao Rong, "Thank you. Second madam, this is what I should do." Zhao Rong smiled innocently and escorted the second bedroom and his family back to a house in South Lane. The house is not big, compared to the Zhao family, it is smaller than their second bedroom. Zhao Yu left with a gloomy face. Ruanyan was happily decorating the house she was going to live in. The second master Zhao wandered around and was not satisfied with anything. He deliberately made trouble and demanded that the second room of the Zhao family be renovated according to the style of the second room of the Zhao family. Zhao Rong smiled and agreed immediately. After Mr. Zhao finished speaking, he asked him to give him money to find a craftsman to repair it. Mr. Zhao was confused for a long time, and finally believed the fact that he was exiled by his family. The total assets are only a few dozen taels of silver. He went to the government office every month to receive his monthly payment. When he didn't have enough money, he would make more advances from the government office. The old lady would help him settle the account, and he never had to worry about money. "So I don't have much savings on hand. How much does it cost to renovate it?" Second Master Zhao became more active. Qin Zhen had a dowry in her hand. She had no children, so it was left to Zhao Yu in the future, which could be used to repair the house. "Wait a minute, I'll go to Qin Zhen to ask for the money first." Zhao Rong reminded, "Second master, if you want to repair the second room of the Zhao mansion according to its appearance, it will cost about several thousand taels of silver. Not only is the work delicate and requires carvings, but also the furniture is very expensive." Master Zhao waved his hand, "Just wait, it's only a few thousand taels." He hurried to find Mrs. Zhao and found her and an old nanny standing furtively under the flower window, talking in a low voice. Subconsciously, Mr. Zhao came closer with soft footsteps and overheard the conversation between the master and the servant. "Second madam, I saw Master Zhao Yu's biological mother in a place called Yunping County not far from the capital. It's the same place as Lao Nu's hometown. Coincidentally, I live in Doxifang, which is across the street from Lao Nu's house." The favorite of the Nongmen group, the female supporting role is a full-level boss. Author, Ruanmeng Baobao. Chapter 365. Master Zhao suddenly trembled when he heard Luer's whereabouts. She was so excited that she wanted to ask the old lady about Luer's specific situation, but she heard Qin Zhen say, "She has nothing to do with the second master for a long time. When she left the capital, she told me that she would never come back, so I will raise you as your own son. Just pretend you haven't heard anything about her." You have to be tight-lipped in front of the second master and don't say a word. Qin Zhen's voice brought him back to reality. Mr. Zhao Er calmed down instantly. He could not go to Qin Zhen. This vicious woman didn't want him to know Luer's whereabouts at all. She was afraid that it would endanger her status, and she was also afraid that the son she had raised would not recognize her as his mother. Mr. Zhao Er's heart became hot and he wished he could get a pair of wings and fly to Yunping County to find Luer. He turned around and walked out of the yard, planning to call Zhao Yu to go find his sweetheart together. He suddenly realized that he was short of money and came to Qin Zhen to ask for money. Mr. Zhao Er came back again, his footsteps became heavier, alerting the master and servant under the flower window that someone was coming. Sure enough, this time, before he reached the door of the house, Qin Zhen walked out, and the old woman followed her. Mr. Zhao Er's eyes turned to Qin Zhen's face. Seeing that this woman was very calm, he snorted in his heart. She was very scheming. I want to renovate the house and make it look more luxurious. When the time comes, I can ask a matchmaker to propose marriage to you, so it won't look too shabby. Mr. Zhao Er took one look at the simple house, with disgust in his eyes. Even though we are separated, in the end we are the same as the Zhao family, and we cannot let our status be dishonored. What the second master said is that you should hire someone to renovate it. Mrs. Zhao's second wife lowered her eyebrows and agreed to whatever he said. Mr. Zhao Er felt relieved and raised his chin slightly. You give me 5,000 taels first. Zhao Rong said that it will cost so much money to renovate. Mrs. Zhao Er was surprised. Second master, I don't have so much money. How is that possible? Mr. Zhao Er shouted in a loud voice. Don't you have 5,000 taels of silver notes in your dowry at the bottom of the box? There are also a lot of expensive jewelry and real estate. These are also worth a lot of money, right? Mrs. Zhao Er's face was a little unnatural. She twisted the handkerchief in her hand, stared at the tips of her shoes, and said, I used to learn how to lend money at interest. I first took out 10 taels of silver and let it out, but it didn't last for 10 days. In a matter of seconds, I got back 15 taels of silver, which was more valuable than the real estate I had. The second time I was bolder, I put in 100 taels, and I got 200 taels of silver in a month. The third time, I used all the cash in my hand. When I let it out, the other party only gave me interest and did not return the principal. Not long after that, he told me that he had a problem with his business turnover and that all the money had been hijacked. He asked me to invest some more money in him. If I refused to invest, the business would not be successful and the money I lent him before would not be repaid. The amount was too huge, and I really couldn't bear to part with it, and because I had indeed received interest from him, I was swayed by the lard and snared the shop, property and jewelry all in. In the end, I couldn't find him anymore, so I told my mother-in-law to help find him. Man, only then did he discover that his household registration was fake and there was no such person. You paid it all in? Mr. Zhao Er's face turned red and he pointed at Qin Zhen with trembling hands. Are you pretending to be confused? Don't you know to tell me? Mrs. Zhao Er's expression changed and she gave him a faint look. Second master, I want to ask you for help. You got the news about Miss Luer and left the capital to find her. Mr. Zhao Er was at a loss for words, and all the depression was in his chest, which made him panic. Not giving up, he asked in a low voice, how many more do you have in your hand? 50 taels of silver. Mr. Zhao Er took a deep breath and suppressed his anger. Give it all to me. Mrs. Zhao Er ordered the old woman to get it. The old woman hesitated to speak, and finally went to get the money. Master Zhao Er took the money and hurriedly found Zhao Yu without even looking at Mrs. Zhao Er. The two of them went to Yunping County together. Mrs. Zhao Er looked at his leaving back calmly, curled her lips, and told the old woman behind her, pack your bags, let's go back to Qin's house. Zhao Mansion. Tang Nuan and Zhao Wei returned to the courtyard together, feeling very depressed. In this huge mansion, Mrs. Zhao loved her the most and took care of her the most. Now that she has left suddenly, there is no one in this house who has a close relationship with her. Tang Nuan felt empty in his heart, and a sense of loneliness came over him. She suddenly remembered the wooden box Mrs. Zhao gave her, left Zhao Wei and went into the inner room to take out the box. The author has something to say. Babies, there is still an update. You can watch it when you wake up in the morning. Good night, okay. Warm reminder, if you find that clicking the next page will force you to jump to other websites, please use the chapter error or contact us at the bottom to inform us. We will handle it as soon as possible. Thank you for your understanding. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The favorite of the Nongmen group, the female supporting role is a full-level boss. Author, Ruan Meng Baobao. Chapter 366. Tang Nuan sat directly on the ground holding the wooden box, using a handkerchief to wipe off the dust on the surface of the wooden box, as if to wipe away the uneasiness in his heart. She had not forgotten what Sister Su had said, instructing her second sister-in-law to come to her for a safe pulse. Does this mean that the second sister-in-law is not in good health? Tang Nuan intuitively found all the answers in this wooden box. When my grandmother was about to die from a serious illness, she called her to her side. She seemed to be having a flashback. She looked very good. Accompanied by her, she ate half a bowl of gruel and handed her a box, asking her not to open it for the time being and take it with her. She handed it to her aunt and asked her to open it in front of her. What was finally placed inside was a stack of banknotes and the household registration that the old lady had obtained for her. Her grandmother knew that she was unhappy in the house, so she handed her household registration and a large sum of money so that she could leave the house and go where she wanted to go. What is this? Zhao Wei's tall body loomed over her, feeling extremely oppressive. Under Tang Nuan's gaze, he squatted beside her and pointed at the box in her arms. When I left the house yesterday, I saw you bring it back. Tang Nuan stared at the side of his face, but Zhao Wei was caught off guard and looked sideways. The light from the window reflected in his eyes, glowing softly, melting away the heavy frost and snow in his eyes. She blinked her eyes and noticed that Zhao Wei's attitude seemed to have changed. His casual words became more easygoing and approachable, which invisibly shortened the distance between the two people. Tang Nuan clearly realized at this moment that Zhao Wei intended to repair the relationship and he wanted to continue the marriage. Well, the second sister-in-law gave it to her. She said she would keep it here and asked me not to open it. When the time comes, she will send someone to pick it up. Tang Nuan gently brushed the carvings on the wooden box with his fingers and spoke in a sweet voice. Bored again, I'm always worried about her. The second sister-in-law will only be happy when she is in her natal family, right? She spends her whole life to buy freedom for the girls in her natal family. I'm always worried about her, just like my grandmother was at that time. By the time she came back from her aunt's house, she had already passed away. Tang Nuan saw it. When her grandmother left, she was very peaceful, with a smile on her lips. But the moment she closed her eyes, she said to the grandmother beside her, I can't worry about that little girl. Grandma holds in her hand the silver bracelet she wore as a child. Because of this, Tang Nuan never thought of leaving the Guangyuan Marquis mansion no matter how much he disliked it. She was the same wherever she was. When she stayed in the home mansion, it was as if her grandmother was still with her. In another form, Grandma said she would protect her. I want to open it. Tang Nuan tapped the lock plate with his finger and said gloomily, but I promised my second sister-in-law that I won't open it. The next moment, the wooden box was empty and fell into Zhao Wei's hands. Tang Nuan suddenly looked around and saw Zhao Wei smiling at her, if I open it for you, it doesn't count as breaking the agreement between you and the second sister-in-law. Can it still be like this? Tang Nuan was stunned. Of course Zhao Wei opened the lock as he spoke. I never made an agreement with my second sister-in-law. But I know. You can't beat me. Tang Nuan choked, puffed up his cheeks, stretched out a finger, and poked his hard arm. I will tell the second sister-in-law that I broke the promise and wanted to open it. Zhao Wei's arm muscles suddenly tightened. Seeing her eyes drooping and her whole body soft, he sighed for no reason, covered her head with his broad palm and rubbed it, like a child. I'm not a child. Tang Nuan frowned and turned her head to avoid his hand. Don't touch my head, I won't grow taller. Grandma said that I am still growing, and I am so much taller than before. She stretched out her white and tender hands and pinched a small section of her little finger with her thumb. Zhao Wei smiled, his indulgent look was really like coaxing a child. Tang Nuan has a round face, round eyes, and cute appearance. He looks a little younger than he actually is, and his figure is also petite and petite, only reaching Zhao Wei's chest, but he is as tall as he should be. She disliked her height very much and was always misunderstood by others as being very young and not even haircut yet. Tang Nuan was very resistant to being said to be like a child, so she responded softly, Master Zhao, please remember that this child of mine is the wife you are marrying. How do you feel about marrying a child? Zhao Wei looked serious, his dark and deep eyes fixed on her face. Only then did Tang Nuan realize what she had asked, and she felt ashamed. Her face turned red and her heart beat faster when he stared at her like this. Just when Tang Nuan thought Zhao Wei would say something serious, he said in a low voice, Did you make money? Tang Nuan's eyes widened and she stared at him in astonishment. I'm 8 years older than you. Zhao Wei rarely spoke in a relaxed tone, and he had the intention of teasing her. Seeing that she was as docile as a rabbit, if he made her anxious, he would extend his claws to scratch and bite people fiercely. As everyone knows, the more this happens, the more people will bully you. Practice how to raise a child first. If you have a child in the future, you don't have to worry about raising a child badly. Raising bad? Tang Nuan's mind was filled with questions. Are you using me to practice? Zhao Wei didn't answer and handed the wooden box to her. Look what's inside. Tang Nuan's attention was diverted, and she held the box to study the contents inside. A smile flashed across Zhao Wei's eyes, and he rubbed his thin lips with his index finger, remembering the birth of his eldest nephew. He was very delicate when he was a child, and when he clamored for something, if he didn't give it to him, he would always howl at the top of his lungs, which made people cry. He had a headache, and if he was given something fresh to coax him, he would immediately stop crying and play with it happily, throwing away the thing he had been clamoring for before. Tang Nuan is like this child. Zhao Wei. Tang Nuan called out in an unusual voice. I am here. Tang Nuan turned her head, her eyes were red and covered with mist. She held the wooden box in front of him with both hands. Her nose seemed to be even more sore, as if there was a fluid blockage. She sniffed hard and tears fell down. Zhao Wei stared at her tears, frowning, and looked down at the contents of the box. There were neatly placed 10 gold bars, a stack of silver notes and a title deed to a house. There were envelopes scattered on the hem of her skirt, with a few beautiful words written on them, Tang Nuan's kiss. The letter paper inside was scattered on her embroidered shoes. You didn't need to guess why she was crying. Is this what the second sister-in-law left for you? Zhao Wei wiped away the tears on her cheeks with his rough fingertips. Tang Nuan wanted to say something, but when she opened her mouth, she was so choked up that she couldn't speak, so she had to nod her head vigorously. Zhao Wei stretched out his arms to hold her in his arms and patted her back gently. Second sister-in-law is a lonely person. After you entered the house, she had support in her heart and loved you as a junior. She has no children in her life. Wu Nu, I have a fate with you. Just pretend you don't know what's in the box and just treat her with your heart. The author has something to say. Ahem, cough, cough, update 2001st, there is about one chapter left, Ruan Bao will continue to write, okay. The favorite of the Nongmen group, the female supporting role is a full-level boss. Author, Ruan Meng Bao Bao. Chapter 367. Tang Nuan grabbed his clothes with both hands and cried especially sadly. Mrs. Zhao Er was very kind to her. When she first came to the house, she was unfamiliar with the place, didn't know anyone, and didn't understand many rules. She relied on the maid assigned to her by the old lady to teach her. A maid is a maid after all. She only knows some of the rules set by the house, but she can't teach them anymore. Mrs. Zhao Er acted as a mother, teaching her how to take charge of the central government, how to deal with various governments in the capital, and which ladies had what preferences or taboos. How to behave in the world, he would also braid her hair, sew her hooked clothes, and most importantly, tell her to learn to love herself first, etc. In the letter, every word is filled with her loving heart. She said that when you put people who don't love you first in your heart, you will wrong yourself and suffer yourself in this life. People with a miserable heart cannot warm others and lose the ability to love others. It brings gloom to others, not sunshine. She said, Nuan Nuan, it's great for me to meet you. You may be a child sent to me by God. She said that when you feel unhappy around Zhao Wei, take this money and go out for a walk when you are no longer restricted to this small sky and can only hold him in your eyes. When you see the vastness of the grasslands, the majesty of the mountains and rivers, the vastness of the sea, the rumors and anecdotes from all over the world, and do what you love, if you have too many things in your heart, you will find that love is just a small thing for a person. Part. She said that Zhao Wei is a person you can trust and that it is worth fighting for yourself. Even if you fail, it will not be your regret. She said a lot, even her biological mother had never thought so thoughtfully about her. He never spoke of her pain, and only wrote the sentence at the end of the letter, Nuan Nuan, don't be sad for me, you should be happy for me. The end of this bad life of mine is another new life for me. It will be the beginning of a happy life. You just need to send me your blessings. Tang Nuan felt very sad. She knew that this wooden box contained these things. Mrs. Zhao Er told her not to open it because it was not time yet. She was afraid that after Mrs. Zhao passed away, she would send someone around her to tell her to open the wooden box. I don't want this box. I want to give it back to her. Tang Nuan suddenly lost his temper, left Zhao Wei's arms, put the letters in, put them all neatly in the box, locked them, and stubbornly wanted to deliver them to Mrs. Zhao Er. It seems that as long as she doesn't accept it, Mrs. Zhao Er will not leave her, just like her grandmother. Zhao Wei chased after him with a meteoric stride, and ordered Zhao Rong to prepare a carriage and take Tang Nuan to the house where the second room was staying. When they went there, Ruan Yan was the only one in the house. She didn't know the whereabouts of Mrs. Zhao Er, but she mentioned that Mr. Zhao Er and Zhao Yu had gone to Yunping County, seemingly to find Zhao Yu's biological mother. Zhao Wei's face suddenly darkened and he took Tang Nuan on the carriage to Qin's house. The servant of the Qin family went to make the announcement, and came over about 2/4 of an hour later with a message from Mrs. Zhao Er, Mrs. Zhao Si, my aunt is tired today, so she won't receive you. If you have any questions, she will invite you to visit her in 2 days. Explain in detail. Tang Nuan nodded, got on the carriage in despair, and said to Zhao Wei, I want to go see Sister Su and ask her to give my second sister-in-law a safe pulse. Zhao Wei tapped the wall of the car with his fingers, go to Gu Mansion. The author has something to say. Ouch, Ruan Bao is too sleepy. The plot I want to write is still a little short of the mark. I can't stand it any longer. I'll come back tomorrow after New Year greetings and continue to update. Good night, okay. The favorite of the Nongmen group, the female supporting role is a full-level boss. Author, Ruan Bao. Chapter 368. When Suwon learned that the Zhao family had separated Mr. Zhao out of the house, Ms. Zhao had redeemed herself for Ruan Yan and stayed by Zhao Yu's side to serve her. Her anger subsided. She was holding the baby in her arms and breastfeeding, while Gu's mother was sitting next to her sewing clothes for the baby, and the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law were talking. I think Ms. Zhao is a pitiful child who has been raised by herself. She never regards her as her mother from the bottom of her heart. In this life, she does not have a child of her own, and my husband does not have her in his heart. It is so painful, Gu's mother said. As a woman, I understand very well the pain in Ms. Zhao's heart. If I am separated now, I am afraid that life will be difficult in the future. Suwon had a different view. I'm afraid this is what Ms. Zhao asked for. She could have smoothed things over for Zhao Yu that day, but she didn't. It shows that she is not the kind of person who just tolerates it. I'm afraid she will take action and won't do it again. Let Mr. Zhao humiliate her. If it were her, she would have castrated Zhao Ziwen long ago. Is that so? Mother Gu liked Ms. Zhao very much and couldn't help but meddle in her own business. Wan, didn't you say you wanted to get a safe pulse for Ms. Zhao? You can take the opportunity to relieve her and let her look away. Life is short, you should live for yourself. Mr. Zhao is not a good person, there is no need to spend your whole life for him. Suwon fell into silence. Ms. Zhao's face could tell that she was seriously ill. Her body should reflect the symptoms, but she did not come to see him for medical treatment. This showed that she was determined to die. She lowered her eyes and looked at the little guy with a fair and rosy face, and gently touched the little guy's cheek with her fingers. Jiao is sleeping. I'm going to visit Ms. Zhao. When a woman gets married, she is reincarnated for the second time. 9 out of 10 women from rich and powerful families will not live well. Although we country people live in poverty, there are not 3 wives and 4 concubines in the man's backyard. Gu's mother sighed. I still like living in the countryside. When Beizu gets married and Jiao grows up, I will go back to the countryside to retire. You can retire wherever you want. I'll build you a new house and arrange for a few people to take care of you. You can farm the land if you want. You can do nothing. Just walk around with your hands behind your back like a little old lady who is a landowner. Suwon started laughing as she spoke. If you feel lonely, take Jiao with you. We'll live in the capital for a while and in the countryside for a while. Gu's mother also smiled. Thinking about her childhood days, they were beautiful. She thought of another thing. Is my mother-in-law's health feeling better? During Gu Jiao's 100-day ceremony, Chi Min was ill and could not attend. She was afraid that it would be unlucky for the child to have the illness. I feel better, but my throat is speechless. It will take a few more days after feeding. Suwon pulled off her clothes, wiped Gu Jiao's mouth, put the child in the cradle, and covered it with a small quilt. Looking at her contented lips, her watery eyes narrowed, and she fell asleep again. Her heart softened and she said softly, Mom, I will go to the regent's palace and then see Ms. Zhao. You go ahead, I'm here, kid. Gu's mother waved her hand, urging Suwon to go quickly. Suwon changed her clothes and just walked out of the yard when she saw Chi-Wu coming with Zhao Wei and Tang Nuan. What's wrong? Suwon saw Tang Nuan's eyes were red, and immediately thought of Ms. Zhao's second wife. Is it your second sister-in-law? Tang Nuan grabbed Suwon's hand and begged, Sister Wan, do you know that my second sister-in-law is not doing well? She left me a will and now she refuses to see me in the Qin family. You can go and take a look. Not good. I don't trust her, I'm afraid something will happen to her. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The favorite of the Nongmen group, the female supporting role is a full-level boss. Author, Ruan Bao. Chapter 369. Suwan went to Qin Mansion with Tang Nuan. Mrs. Zhao Er still didn't want to see her. Tang Nuan knelt directly on the ground, with tears in his eyes, and said firmly to the doorman, "Tell the second sister-in-law that if she refuses to see me, I will keep kneeling here until she is willing to see me." The doorman was in trouble. Mrs. Jean, on the other hand, asked someone to open the door and let Tang Nuan, Suwan, and others in. The door servant led them directly to Mrs. Zhao's yard. Tang Nuan stood under a peach tree and saw Mrs. Zhao from the window, wearing a forehead wipe and sitting on the bedside. She asked the person next to her, the maid, "Is Nuan gone?" "My aunt, Mrs. Zhao Si hasn't left yet, why don't you see her?" "I'm not in a good mood today and I'll scare her. She came here in such a hurry and insisted on seeing me. She was probably disobedient and saw things she shouldn't have seen." Mrs. Zhao Er's words were filled with helplessness. "I have never regretted it. Fortunately, I didn't listen to you. Otherwise, next time I see you, would I have to wear plain clothes?" Tang Nuan stood at the door of the inner room, looking at the sallow-faced Mrs. Zhao Er, with a serious look on her face. Tears burst into my eyes instantly. "You said that love for a person is just a small part of life. The vastness of the grassland, the majesty of the mountains and rivers, the vastness of the sea, the customs of various places, everything is full of vitality and fireworks. There is always something that can make people experience the joy of life. Why don't you just do this?" Mrs. Zhao Er felt sour in her heart and burst into tears. She turned away. "I am half buried in the loess. I can't walk anymore and I don't want to leave. You are still young. All the regrets are gone, I can make up for it, Tang Nuan knelt down on the footrest, and Mrs. Zhao's words stopped abruptly. "Can I be your daughter?" Tang Nuan held Mrs. Zhao's hand. Her nose was severely blocked. She held her breath and said with a thick nasal voice, "I have biological father and mother, and they have never regarded me as their daughter. My daughter has been raised by a wet nurse since she was born. You have never given birth to a child in your life. You and Mr. Zhao are divorced. I will be your child and accompany you wherever you want to go. Also, you are still so young, only in your early 40s, how old are you? You are at your most beautiful age when your charm is still there." Mrs. Zhao Er was shocked. She never expected Tang Nuan to say such words. "You silly boy. I'm not smart, and I'm very stubborn, so you just pity me. Apart from my grandmother, you are the only one who treats me the best, as good as my mother." Tang Nuan lay on Mrs. Zhao Er's knees, sobbing. "You give it a try. If you're still unhappy, I won't stop you." Mrs. Zhao Er's tears fell in clusters and she clenched her hands tightly into fists. "There are many ways to live in life. Just live in another way." Tang Nuan choked with sobs and said, "Can I let Sister Wan take a look at it for you?" Mrs. Zhao Er slowly turned her head and looked at Tang Nuan's clear eyes, full of hope. That layer of light was too weak, as if her rejection could crush it in an instant. The light in these clean and pure eyes dissipated and became eclipsed. Mrs. Zhao Er nodded slowly under her gaze. Tang Nuan smiled in surprise, with tears streaming down her face. She couldn't wait to turn around and call to Suwan, "Sister Wan, come and take a look." Suwan walked in, took out the pulse pillow, and took Mrs. Zhao's pulse. Tang Nuan stood aside and didn't dare to disturb him. He watched Suwan take his pulse, checked it, and asked a few more questions. His brows furrowed, and his expression seemed a little solemn. She panicked and asked quickly, "Sister Wan, how are you doing?" The favorite of the Nongmen group, the female supporting role is a full-level boss. Author, Ruan Bao. Chapter 370. Suwan saw Mrs. Zhao coughing a few times and said in a deep voice, Mrs. Zhao has lung disease. This is a wasting disease. It has been delayed for too long. Even after she is cured, her body will still be very weak. It takes a long time to recover. Mrs. Zhao asked in surprise, can it be cured? At that time, she had chest tightness and cough, and she lost weight rapidly. She was very weak. She asked the imperial doctor to check her pulse. She said that it was tuberculosis, which could not be cured. She could only eat more nourishing foods to nourish her body, so as to extend her life a little. Mrs. Zhao is quite open-minded. She is tired of living such a life and doesn't care. No one told me about this illness. I tolerated it as long as I could in front of others, pretending that nothing happened. It's just that her whole life was ruined by Zhao Ziwen, and she was unwilling to let him lie freely. From then on, she started planning, and before leaving, she always wanted him to live a miserable life in order to relieve her anger. It can be cured, Suwan said firmly. Ancient people did not know about Mycobacterium tuberculosis, so they could not cure tuberculosis. Tang Nuan relaxed completely and held Mrs. Zhao's hand. Sister Wan said it can be cured, but you must not be confused again. She looked at Mrs. Zhao's sallow face, feeling distressed and at the same time feeling indignant towards Zhao Ziwen. He went to find Feng Luer. When he comes back, you can make peace with him. From now on, find a husband who is thousands of times better than him to spend your whole life with you. Mrs. Zhao smiled and coughed again. She calmed down and said, you little girl, what am I looking for at my age? But you. She looked up at Zhao Wei, who was standing at the door, and coughed a few times. He said in a voice, give me a fat baby earlier to help you take care of it. Tang Nuan blushed with embarrassment, glanced at Zhao Wei, met his dark eyes, her heart throbbed inexplicably, and she looked away pretending to be calm. It's up to chance. She muttered under her breath. Mrs. Zhao touched her head with gentle eyes and said nothing. Zhao Ziwen and Zhao Yu traveled all night and arrived in Yunping County early the next morning. They opened an inn nearby. After freshening up, they rented a local carriage and went to Doxifang. Zhao Ziwen stood in front of Doxifang. This area was not like a wealthy area, and the houses were all old. The people coming in and out were all wearing coarse clothes, and the better ones were made of cotton, which had been starched and turned white. His eyes turned red, filled with heartache. Needless to say, Luer's life was not good after she left him. Dad, this place is big, where can we find someone? Zhao Yu looked at the dirty and dark Doxifang, his eyebrows were knotted and full of disgust. If she changes her name, I won't be able to find out. As long as she lives here, she can always be found. Zhao Ziwen touched his sleeve, which contained a portrait he had made of Feng Luer. If you can't wait for someone, put up a notice to find someone. Zhao Yu said impatiently, you look here, I'll go back to the inn first. He has no feelings for his biological mother, especially since this biological mother has no power. She was once a prostitute in a brothel and cannot bring him any help. Many times, he thinks about how great it would be if Qin Zhen was his biological mother. No matter what happens, Qin Zhen will clean up his mess. Even if he is separated from the Zhao family, he still has his maternal ancestors, the Qin family, to rely on. You. Zhao Ziwen chased Zhao Yu for a few steps, and suddenly he saw a graceful woman walking out of the alley. The familiar face made him freeze in place, stunned. Called, Luer.